I'm Tim, welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. Well, did something happen in U.S. football last night?
It was a little
did
game.
I miss something?
Small game yesterday.
I was on a watch forum. I think I missed it, but I think the Eagles did well. All right, so if you're mourning your Patriots or celebrating your Eagles, or like me and most of the world, completely oblivious and indifferent, tonight we've got a fantastic this or that, a slate of questions from users, and as ever, this is Monday Mailbag, your live question and answer show where we are more than willing to throw out our talking points to answer your questions out of the chat box. I can see friends joining us from far-flung. Matt Forster, first tonight. Cam joining us, SK. I can see True Lie. I can see Russell996, Shannon, Captain Zed Valblitz, J.O. Ribeiro, and David Cahill, Andre Philippe. Welcome from Norway. Okay, first things in first. TheWatchbox.com, the most fun you can have buying, trading, and selling watches. Not only how I buy, trade, and sell watches, but also how I pay my bills. I kid, this is a lot of fun because the watches are beautifully photographed, thoroughly described, and most of them include my own videos. So yes, I'm partial. Jason, let's do some wrist shots. What are you wearing tonight?
Sure. Totally unexpected. Not necessarily the newest watch in the world, but this is my 114060. It's a 2014. So ceramic, non-date, just kind of a classic every day. This thing's been on my wrist more often than not since I got it. With the Panerai getting a little bit of time, but this guy's pretty much the favorite right now.
Yeah, how badass is that? A no-date sub and a scar. That's hardcore, man. Well done. Okay, so tonight I thought I'd go a little bit sporty. And I'm wearing my JLC Amvox 2 chronograph, and you can see it's a handsome little engineering concept where the pushers are hidden and the actual interaction with the chronograph is done through an articulated case with the pusher integrated into the body of the case, so you can start it, you can stop it, and you can reset it just by pushing 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Titanium, 44 millimeters, 750 pieces from 2006. To me, this is still the best Richard Mille you can buy for under $10,000. A concept watch come to life, one of my dream watches, and I still love it. Okay, so I got a question from Andre Philippe saying, Tim, I'm looking forward to your hands-on review of the Richard Longa Pour le Mérite. Yes, and it's actually in-house with me tonight in my safe. Review going up no later than Wednesday. Stay tuned for that one. Okay, this or that. I'm going to ask Jason to pick between two watches that I offer him and then retrace his collector's logic for our benefit. Okay, tonight it's this or that milestone dive watches from Baselworld 2017. The next big show is approaching fast. Let's look back 1 year. First and foremost, the Rolex Sea Dweller 43, the birthday boy, 50 years old as of 2017. We got a new version of it that effectively replaces the Sea Dweller 4000, and alongside, as Grand Seiko exorcises the Seiko from its dial, the Grand Seiko Hi-Beat 36,000 professional 600-meter divers. Okay, two watches, similar profile, same show. Here we go. Rolex Oyster Perpetual Sea Dweller. This is technically the 126-600. Jason, I know you're kind of prejudiced because you're wearing a Rolex tonight, but let me finish.
Go for it.
Okay, so in 2017, we welcomed the 50th anniversary Sea Dweller. Close inspection of the result reveals the return of the red Sea Dweller signature, evocative, handsome, and well chosen for the occasion. 43 millimeters in stainless steel, 1,220 meters water resistant, helium escape valve as ever at 9 o'clock, ceramic bezel insert. An update to a classic. This is also the first incorporation of the Cyclops Eye date magnifier onto a Sea Dweller model. A little bit controversial, but from a practical standpoint, it does work well. Now, the 43 millimeter Sea Dweller is 1 millimeter smaller, but a world more attractive and better proportioned than the Deep Sea. The better case proportions make this one more attractive to the eye, as well as better suited to smaller wrists. Do we have better case proportions, guys? Bracelet and lug width also looking quite well chosen and matched. This was one of the objections to the Deep Sea, where the bracelet was just too thin and the lugs were just too wide. That's been fixed here. Okay, now in terms of automatic chronometer caliber 3235, what I really want to tell you here is that power reserve increases from 48 to 70 hours. Not much else there other than the fact that Rolex advertises a fully cased up, complete watch standard of -2 + 2 seconds per day, no worse. Now $11,350 US, Jason, but a 5-year warranty.
Sure.
Okay, now here's the alternative. Boom. Grand Seiko. This is the SBGH257, guys. 36,000 vibration per hour, professional diver, 600 meters. Now, for 2017, Grand Seiko released this limited edition dive watch as part of its rebranding year. At 12 o'clock, you see GS, Grand Seiko, not Seiko. Subtle for us, but this was a big deal within the Seiko-Epson empire. Okay, 600-meter advertised depth, and they claim it's impregnable to helium, so none can get in and none can get out, so it has no helium escape valve. A little bit like the old Ploprof from the early 70s. 46.9 millimeters and 17 millimeters thick. This is a really big watch, but it's in titanium, so on the wrist it feels about the same size as the Rolex. Impressive case finish, the attention to detail, the nuance, the character, it's easily evident, and far more so than its Rolex rival. There are more character lines, contrasts, and finished creases, just a sharper and more attractive profile, and that's a good thing because it's 17 millimeters thick. Now, I'll also say this, the dropped crown is better protected and will not dig wrists. You can see how the crown has been dropped at 4 o'clock. Blue hobnail dial of solid iron is very handsome, and though it's only at about 1/4 of the anti-magnetism of the Milgauss, if it only looked good, it would be worthwhile. The functional aspect is just the cream on top. Finally, a trigger and clamshell clasp with a push-button sliding clasp extension that gives you a lot of incremental adjustment, about an inch's worth, so roughly 25 millimeters. Each watch is shipped with an accessory strap in blue silicone, this is an accessory strap that is unique to the limited edition. The SBGH255 does not have this. And each 9S85 automatic has a 55-hour power reserve, 10 beats per second, hacking seconds, and a date. And it is a manufacturer caliber rated to -3 + 5, $9,800, Jason, 500 pieces, but a 3-year warranty. Less expensive, less common, also less warranty, much bigger. Which do you pick and why?
So, yes. Slightly less brash, I would say, is the Rolex on the wrist, which is definitely a task to outbrash a Rolex. I have to go with the 43 red. I think in the long run, it'll be a lot harder to get the Seiko, although I don't know that in 4 or 5 years when you can't find one, it'll really matter. I don't know that they're going to appreciate, as much as maybe something like this will in 10 years. I think for the money, retail to retail, and securing now instead of later, I go with the 43. It's a watch that I would much prefer to wear. I think it's, in my opinion, this watch, they got rid of the Sea Dweller 4000, but they also got rid of the Deep Sea with this watch. In my opinion, I think it replaces.
They basically made it redundant.
Yeah, I think that it replaces it in the market. I think it's a better, more refined version of the Deep Sea. I never had an urge to wear a Deep Sea or own one, and I would own this 43. And that coming from a 40, I think the regular sub is comfortable, but I think this has really nice lines and contouring. That being said, the Grand Seiko, it's very hard to downplay the fit and finish of a Grand Seiko. I just have a hard time justifying spending $10,000 on a Grand Seiko.
I can see that.
It's a lot of money for what it is, and I know that's kind of a stigma with a lot of people. They think Grand Seiko is expensive already, but I would totally own a Snowflake. Sure. I don't know if I'd lay down 10 grand for this watch. So for me, it would be the 43, and I would actually own it and wear it and keep it.
So let me ask you a question. If this were actually a shootout between the 43 millimeter Sea Dweller and, like, say, the SBGA 29 diver, which is a spring drive diver from Grand Seiko that costs around $6,000, would that sway your logic if now the pricing paradigm is reframed?
Yeah, I think so, because so Grand Seiko, Seiko in general, just Seiko as a brand, has always been for me a value proposition. So Grand Seiko even more so. You're getting hand finishing, you're getting these crazy finishes, and technically the watch is excellent. So I think for value proposition, if I'm going to a piece that is comparable but is half the price, that has to, you can't overlook that. That has to be taken into account. I would say if the $12,000 for the Rolex didn't mean anything to me and it was one or the other, and it's $4 grand in the savings account, I'd still probably pick the 43 because of what the watch is now and how hard it is to get. That appeals to me. Secondary market is strong on the watch. I still think that that's a piece that I would own and wear, and in 10 years, that will be the new Sea Dweller 4000, where they're on the rise and hard to get once it's discontinued.
Now, would you say this is probably accurate? Even though the Sea Dweller costs $11,350 and the Grand Seiko costs $9,800, realistically, you're going to get the difference back. Even if they both depreciate, you're probably going to take greater depreciation on the Grand Seiko than you would on the Sea Dweller. Like at the point of reselling the watch, if it's 5, 6, 7 years down the line, you're going to get back better than you lose by laying out additional cash.
So there's a couple parts to that. I would agree with you to the most of it. So here's the thing: secondary market is demand. So when somebody calls me and they say I have a watch I want to sell, my ears perk up when they have a Rolex. They want to sell it as opposed to a Grand Seiko. Even though I love Grand Seiko and I think they're great watches. But that's just one man's opinion. Imagine selling that to a public. You're going to have a much broader audience when you're selling a 43mm high demand Rolex stainless steel than you are selling a Grand Seiko. There's also which type of buyer you're going to be dealing with. Grand Seiko buyers are going to be much more picky because they know every little intricacy about the watch. Whereas Rolex is, you know, it's a great product, but a lot of it is also people just looking to have the hottest Rolex. So for right now, I think the Rolex is easier to sell, sells for more. For in the future, I think to the second part of that question, the depreciation value percentage-wise is going to be a little bit lower on the Seiko. I think you're going to get a little bit more money back because there's only 500 units.
Okay. So but you're going to have to find a Seiko fan.
You're going to have to find that guy. And they'll be out there, but it's going to be tougher.
Okay, so real quick, we have a question from Fernando Sanchez. Okay, Audemars Royal Oak Chronograph or Patek 5153G. So he's asking, should I buy the, I want to say it was 2010 edition 5153 in white gold, which is an officer's hunter case back, Calatrava with the straight lugs, the screwed lugs, the hunter case back, the simple round, almost pocket watch-like case, latest in a long succession of officers' watches, or a Royal Oak chronograph. They're so different in character. I almost think that if you put them both on the wrist, that will make the choice for you. But if you're talking about something like a current Royal Oak chronograph, 26331 ST, I think when you put that on the wrist, it's going to feel huge compared to the Patek. So unless you want an aggressive sporting aesthetic, I would actually go with the Patek here. Just remember, that steel Royal Oak chronograph is going to be, as Jason likes to say, a lot easier to sell when the time comes. And you're probably going to take less of a loss on it, so bear that in mind. All right, so moving on tonight, we've got a question. And the question is, can I show you my watch? The answer is yes. Viewer wrist shots. Remember, guys, we love to highlight your watches. Send me photos, Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com. Send me your wrist shot. This is Bob sharing his FP Journe Chronometre Optimum. And Bob has fitted a handsome green strap, dark green, almost a BRG color, that matches the platinum case well. So there it is right there, Chronometre Optimum, released in 2012. This is an exceptionally rare Journe model. For instance, out of over 650 watches made last year, they made only 16 of these in all metals. So this is a connoisseur's piece. Self-starting direct impulse escapement, FP Journe said this is as close as he can get to absolute chronometric precision right now. It features a remontoir d'égalité with deadbeat seconds, and you could almost say that it is like a tourbillon with the tourbillon removed. It's got the remontoir, it's got the 1 second deadbeat functionality, and it's got the same chronometric goal. Constant amplitude for 45 hours of the 70-hour power reserve, and again, a little bit like the tourbillon with the tourbillon removed and the remontoir left in place. Send me your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your watch on our screen. All right. So now we jump to a question from Jevon C, and he's asking, hi Tim, may I ask your opinion between the Rolex Daytona 116515 LN, so this is the 116515 LN rose gold ceramic on the Oyster Flex strap with the chocolate dial, and the full white gold bracelet Submariner, the well-loved Smurf. Which would you choose? So Jason, let me ask right off the bat, before we run the statistics, the prices, the resale, which one would you choose for yourself, and which one would you choose if you were playing a market game?
The answer is both the same watch. I go with the Smurf. Okay. To be honest with you, I think I've never really seen the Daytona as a men's watch. That might be heresy, and some people probably give me some backlash for that. I think it wears very well on a woman now, and I guess the rose gold is nice with the ceramic, but for me, if you've never seen that Smurf on wrist, it's amazing. And I'm not a gold person at all. Would much prefer that watch in stainless steel and the price point that goes along with it, but it doesn't exist, and we have to play in Rolex's world. So for me, I go with the Smurf, both in holding value and in something I would actually wear and put in my box.
Okay. Now, I agree with this too. I would buy it because it's more emotionally appealing to me, and because as a pure market play, this is probably the smarter one to pick up. Consider this. The Rolex Daytona 116515LN is $28,800 new. Now, if you pick this up pre-owned, you're going to pay $22,000 to $25,000. So if you're buying this pre-owned, you're paying a pretty stiff price. Now, it's okay if you buy the watch new and sell it, you're going to do a little bit better, but you're still going to lose a little. I see as a pre-owned buy the Smurf being the real bargain, because that watch has a retail of $36,850 US. And if you buy one pre-owned, you're going to pay between $20,000 and $22,000. Now, if you buy it pre-owned at that rate, if you private sale it, you know, moving it from collector to collector as opposed to wholesaling it, you're going to get your money back. But here's the thing: for $20,000 to $22,000, you're getting a almost $37,000 watch versus paying $22,000 to $25,000 for the pre-owned Daytona and getting, you know, a $28,000 watch. So you're getting a lot more watch for your money. You're buying it depreciated, and then let's face it, as much as the Daytona is every millimeter the legend and the icon, the Submariner is Rolex. The Rolex Submariner is the Rolex. It's the best known watch from the best known brand, and this is a little bit of a connoisseur's piece because though very expensive, even pre-owned, it doesn't look it. No one's going to bother you over this watch. It's not like wearing a giant gold Date-8 with diamonds. Heck, it's not like wearing a giant gold Submariner. This is a really stealthy connoisseur's piece, and now that the two-tone has gone back to the sunburst dial, and it has since 2013, this is the only place you can get that rich, glossy, lacquered blue dial on a sub, and I love it. I mean, it's appealing on every level.
Yeah, it's an emotional piece for sure.
Okay, so that would be my choice. If purchased pre-owned, the white gold sub will do better in the long run. I think it's always easier to find a buyer for a Submariner than it is for a Daytona. The Daytona is a ton of colored gold, which is going to be a put-off for me and my New York sensibility. I know some will think this is fantastic, but for me it's a turn-off, and it's not as versatile as the sub, which can be worn with anything. And then finally, you may need more time to sell the Daytona because colored gold Rolex just takes objectively longer to sell on the secondary market, all other things equal. Colored gold sports watch is taking longer to sell, and the white gold sub, if you own it for 10 years or more, might even become a little bit of a collectible. So that's my thought. Okay, so questions coming through right now. Robert Dixon saying blue is so in. That's true, but remember, this Submariner came out in 2008. They were ahead of the trend.
This is what brought blue in.
Yeah, this was the return of blue. I think Rolex was on the vanguard. They were a taste maker, not a taste taker with this one. David Cahill commenting, Daytona all day long, that chocolate dial is stunning. I can see Get Out of the John Boy saying, Jason always had faith in our quarterback here. Yeah, he's an Eagles fan from Tucson. And then finally, we have a question from Boat asking, hey, Tim and Jason, can you explain why the Patek Philippe 5081A is an investment for the future? Kind regards from Belgium. Okay, Boat, well, the thing is, we're talking about the steel Neptune that I often like to give a shout out to here. This is a watch that I believe debuted around 1996, and it was pretty much dead and buried 3 years into the new millennium. So the reason I think this will be a collector's piece is because only a few hundred of this watch were produced. The version with the, and that's of each version, there are probably no more than 2,000 to 3,000 of them kicking around in every version, every dial, every metal. But the steel one on a bracelet, specifically with the salmon dial, is a rare, modern steel Patek Philippe sports watch. Whereas the Nautilus has always been going strong, and new versions of it have proliferated over the years, and the Aquanaut clearly caught fire in '97, and it's had a fruitful life as the junior Nautilus. The Neptune never really caught on. And of course, everything that doesn't catch on initially, that becomes rare, especially when it's a steel Patek sports watch, has a chance to shine down the road. You're talking about a watch that's thin, elegant, and versatile. And again, in steel with the salmon dial, you're looking at a really unique aesthetic that I believe is currently coming back into style. So it's also the right time to be buying that watch. I think with the 5711 going absolutely crazy and irrationally so, getting in on a more affordable and sort of undiscovered modern Patek is a great way to buy a watch that's affordable now and has formidable appreciation potential.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is also a case we have to remember too. It's kind of an all boats rise kind of situation.
Yes. So
pretty much any stainless steel and approaching all metal Pateks are ungettable right now. They're so hot. So I think, you know, limited run, you're looking at a piece that didn't do very well, so we have kind of the collector's regret coming back and saying, I should have got that, now it's affordable, all these pieces are going up, this is going to go up too, and people are flocking to it. Unfortunately, now that we're talking about it, they're all going to be sold out, and then nobody's going to be able to get them, and now they're going to be...
It's the watch box effect, right?
Yeah, it's just too many viewers. So.
Well, I appreciate that, certainly. Also, comments coming from the field. High and Rising mentioned Omega's been making the blue Seamaster for 20-plus years. That's true. Omega was certainly spot on with the use of color in the 90s, and that was across the range. That was everything from the Speedy Reduced to the Seamasters. They were way ahead of that, and actually they had a fantastic first-gen DeVille Co-axial that had a beautiful salmon dial. So I would say overall blue has always been a thing. It's generally been a cult watch color. Today it's so mainstream it's almost played out, but that just means it'll go out of style and come back into style in 5 to 10 years. Okay, so here's a question. Do you think, this is from Robert Dixon in Scotland, that the graphite gray Yachtmaster, the original Yachtmaster, the 116622 with the graphite or dark rhodium dial with the blue accents, will overtake the same 116622 with the platinum bezel and the stainless steel case, but with the blue dial? Do we expect that 2016 dark rhodium to become the definitive Yachtmaster 1?
Yeah, I think that, you know, with Rolex, all old things are born again. I think that this dial appeals to more people. I like the watch quite a bit, and I just had one in my hands about a week ago. Gorgeous watch. I think it's a winner for sure.
I think it's a little bit more of a power watch. I think the Sunburst blue dial is beautiful, but I also think it's maybe a little bit too whimsical for some. There are those who are going to say, you know, dark and gray and grained and heavy. You know, it looks monotone, it looks imposing. It probably looks a little bit bigger on the wrist because it's all of one grayscale spectrum between the steel and the rhodium.
Sure.
So I would say it's got a good chance just because it's new and it's cool, but also because Rolex, despite not making huge watches as a convention, tends to be a power watch, and this is the more powerful aesthetic of the two 116622s in steel and platinum. Also, comments coming through. Hey, this is from Philip Hayden. Tim, what vintage Rolex is better to appreciate, Datejust or Air King? I would say that really depends on which one you get. If you can find an immaculate first generation 1945, you know, 4467 reference Datejust that is pre-Cyclops Eye, alpha hands, you know, just a completely different animal, I think you're going to find something that's almost unique. Whereas if you look at the Air Kings, there have been a number of specialty dials, but I would say realistically there's no one Air King that jumps out because it's always been an entry-level watch. And although from time to time, you know, Q Observatory calibers and boy-sized Rolex can go crazy on the vintage market, the entry-level watches have never really been heartthrobs, whereas the Datejust is historically significant, and it has been a mainstay watch. It's arguably the dressiest Rolex that has iconic status, that almost co-equally with the Date-8. The rock stars are always going to be the GMT, the Daytona, and the Sub, but once you look at the dressier Rolex watches, it's really the Datejust, the Date-8, and then everything else is an also-ran. So I would say find yourself a good first-gen Datejust before the Cyclops Eye. Find yourself a rare combination of dial and metal. Find something with a Middle Eastern potentate signature on the dial, authenticated by a reputable auction house, and then you've got a real investable piece. I would say if you want a modern Datejust that you can consider collectible, look out for one of the Turnographs, one of the Japan special editions. They made, it's a steel and yellow gold. They made 100 with a silver dial, 100 with a black dial. I want to say that is reference 116263. And again, this was a 2010, 2011. Those haven't really been discovered, and a lot of folks don't know they exist. You'll know them by their green seconds hand. That would be the one I choose. Okay. Jumping into the field, we've got questions coming through from Jeremy J, who's looking for a precious metal watch under $13,000, must be pre-owned. He was thinking about a Breguet Type 20, white gold or platinum, likes JLC Master compressors in rose gold, maybe a Zenith El Primero Chronomaster. He's got a Speedy Pro, and he's got a Rolex Oyster Quartz. You have good taste. Okay, what do you suggest? $13,000 or less, pre-owned precious metal. Doesn't have to be colored, can be a wet metal.
I would first, I'd say something a little bit off the beaten path, like maybe a Glashut, something like that, or Girard-Perregaux perhaps. You can get quite a bit of bang for the buck because of the secondary market on those pieces. So for 13 grand, you could probably get a watch that has, you know, maybe a $30,000, $35,000 retail. If you were to go something like one of those brands.
Okay, so the thing is, the world of watches is so wide and so many watches fit this description. I feel bad for offering you just 4 focused recommendations, but I do think based on your expressed interest, these are going to be on point for you. So first of all, the Breguet Type 20 in white gold, yes, but you're just barely going to make it happen. You're not going to get it in platinum for $13,000. You might get a 1990s 3800 Aero Naval, which is a handsome watch, but you've got options that might be more compelling in total when you combine the watch and the movement that's inside. So I would say first and foremost, take a look at the rare and short-lived new for 2012 Zenith El Primero Espada. This was a time-only El Primero, reviving a name from the 1970s. Now the Espada features a Hi-Beat El Primero caliber 4650, so you're getting the same 10 beat per second, you're getting the same sweep seconds with a very smooth, progressive, very almost spring drive like progression. You're getting a 40mm rose gold case with a rich Havana dial that has both depth and texture with beautiful appliques, and you're getting a watch that's very different from what else Zenith sells. And I have to be honest, I'm not a fan of what Zenith's been doing the last 2 to 3 years. So going back to 2012 in the Jean-Frédéric Dufour era, this was a classic piece. It's also a great buy because at $17,000 100 new, that was a ton of money for this watch. Today you can get this for under $9,000. Figure about $8,900 pre-owned. Also, since you talked about liking the Zenith Chronomaster, let me recommend an all-time great. Again, we're looking at colored gold here, but the Zenith Chronomaster 410 from the late 90s, early 2000s. This is a watch that is pre-Terry Nataf, or Terror Nataf, as some have called him. This is a watch that's classically styled. Beautiful triple Gadron bezel, a fluted set of lugs. It's heavy, it's thick, it's elegant. It's also masculine because of the mass of the case. Triple calendar with a moon phase, El Primero automatic 50-hour power reserve fast beat, but also with a chronometer certificate. That ended in the early 2000s. You can pick one of these up for between $10,000 to $12,000 US dollars with all boxes and papers, 40 millimeters, beautiful guilloche dial, really compelling chronometer chronograph with a triple calendar moon phase. Okay, Jaeger LeCoultre, Master Ultra Thin. This is the Jubilee. This is the one that came out in 2013, 39 millimeters by 4.05 millimeters thick. You could almost cut yourself on this watch. This is a seriously compelling 2013 series of 880 pieces that hardly ever come up for sale. It's an everyday watch that is everyday durable. It even has 30-meter water resistance that is frightfully thin. This is a watch that disappears in profile. It's made by the Specialty Horlogère Workshop at Jaeger LeCoultre, which means the same people who are doing grand complications, your minute repeaters, your perpetual calendars, your restorations, they're making this watch because it's that delicate to put together and case this watch. $17,200 was the last cataloged price for this 39mm ultra-thin platinum timepiece, but if you're careful and you monitor pre-owned exchanges like eBay, Chrono24, and thewatchbox.com, you can find one of these for your $13,000 budget. Jason, what do you think of this piece? Is it too thin for comfort, or would you wear that?
I don't know that I'd wear it. I really struck a chord with that new Piaget super thin, or the thin.
The Alta Plano 910.
Yeah, the Alta Plano. That watch, for some reason, and I'm not a thin watch kind of guy, but that watch really struck home. So I have been looking at thin watches lately, thinking, but I feel like this piece right here, I'd put it on my wrist a little too tight and then have to worry about the case bending. So this might be too thin for me, but I don't know.
The good news is it's supposed to be an everyday wearable watch. The bad news is, to make sure that what Jason just said doesn't actually happen, they went with a solid platinum case back to add rigidity in place of the sapphire. Of course, the sapphire also would have added thickness. This is an unnervingly thin watch that I love. Wonderful piece.
I do have my eyes kind of set on the Bulgari, the Finissimo titanium. I think that's about as thin as I want to get. It also has some sport. I think that watch has a lot of future-proofing built into it with the style, and I might have to get one of those soon.
I would say that would be great, but our man wants precious metal. And, okay, we got a question. Robert Dixon, Jason, give him a wave.
Yeah, we did that already.
You did? You gave him a wave? Good. Okay, cool. I can see comments coming in. Thumper JDM saying he's a sucker for Arnold & Son. He wants a time pyramid or a golden wheel. Guys, for those of you who haven't seen the golden wheel, open a different tab. Google Arnold & Son Golden Wheel. You've got deadbeat seconds and a star wheel complication. Does it owe quite a good deal to Audemars Piguet? Sure, but Audemars Piguet owes quite a good deal to late Renaissance clocks. Fair is fair. That said, we're moving on to our final recommendation for our man, and that is the Rolex Cellini Prince. This is one of the coolest watches you can buy, period, and one of the most overlooked modern Rolex timepieces. Now, 2005 to 2015, this watch was made a legitimate Art Deco alternative to the Reverso, because the Reverso was first made in 1931. This model's predecessor first bowed in 1928. So, who made who? Okay, the first display caseback on a Rolex. And I'm impressed by the fact that not only is it a display caseback, but the finishing on the caliber 7040 actually matches the dial on each version. You can see this one also features an engraved case flank. These are gorgeous watches, and the caseback's worthy of that display. The movement's that great. It's also sensational in rose gold. So you've got your option. If you want precious metal, you've got white gold, 2 options, plus rose gold and yellow gold. It's a chronometer, it's manual wind, 70-hour power reserve, fits on most wrists down to 13.5 centimeters circumference. You have choices with all golds available, and again, each movement matches the dial and the style of the case. Expect to pay $8,000 to $12,000 depending on several factors like age, condition, accessories, service receipts, but every Cellini Prince should be available for under 12 grand. Jason, who buys this watch? This is definitely not for every Rolex collector.
Yeah, I don't think this is necessarily a Rolex guy. I think this watch actually lends itself really well to a guy that doesn't like Rolex, because it's so different from everything else in the collection. I think of the selections that you gave, this is probably the one I would go with. I think it's the most unique. It lends itself well to being collected because it's not being produced anymore. It's also, I believe, the only Rolex with the exhibition case back.
Only one ever, yeah.
So that's cool. It's different, and it doesn't look like any other Rolex, like I just said. So you know, if you're gonna go fine metal dress, I think this is an awesome way to go.
I'll also say this: this is the ultimate alternative to your Patek Philippe 5124 Gondolo. This is an alternative to the 5124. This is an alternative to the JLC Reverso. This is an alternative to a Cartier tank. I would even say this is the kind of Rolex that could attract a Vacheron collector, because historically Vacheron has been so closely associated with extravagant case forms and unusual lugs and beautiful fluid shapes, as well as quite a good deal of Art Deco influence back in the day. This is a watch that appeals to maybe everyone but the typical Submariner owner. So handsome option, that would be one of my picks. All right, another viewer wrist shot. Guys, send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com so I can throw it up on our screen. Your wrist, my show. Mike M's wrist shot. Okay, Mike M's wrist shot is his Breitling Aerospace EVO. That's a 2013 to present 43mm blackened titanium model. This one features Breitling's Volcano black dial, that's their term, not mine, with Breitling's military brown textile strap. It's a watch that gives you a lot, 43mm thermocompensated super quartz. It's a COSC quartz chronometer, very uncommon, with a 48-hour chronograph, second time zone, an electronic minute repeater, a backlight with both regular and night vision goggle modes, a 1,461-day semi-perpetual complete calendar, an alarm and a countdown timer, and for you seaplane pilots out there, it's 100 meters water resistant. It is the do-it-all beater with a luxury pedigree and lifetime serviceability. So honestly, Mike, you've got great taste. I love that watch, and if Josh were right here, he would say the same. Breitling Aerospace owner and proud of it. What do you think of the Aerospace?
I like the series. I do like this EVO a little bit better. In the 43mm case, I think it wears better than, for instance, the one Josh has. But both are really nice. I think it's quintessentially like a Swiss Army knife watch. Couldn't ask to put anything more in that watch, and probably wouldn't want anything more. It's intuitive to use, too. So a lot of people think, oh, it's super complicated. There's a lot of stuff in there. It's too much for me. But it really is just twist of the crown. It's very easy to use. And for, I think, around $3,000, so you usually get these pre-owned. It's a lot of watch for the money.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, people are sending me their wrist shots as we speak.
Oh, look at that, yeah.
Okay, so here we go. We've got one from Captain Zed, and he is throwing up his FP Journe Elegant, and I'm gonna turn this thing around, and I'm gonna throw his wrist shot up on my screen as soon as I get that wrist shot up. Guys, remember, that's Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com. All right, so now we have questions coming through in the live chat box. And, okay, this is from Heels Just on the topic of the FP Journe Elegant. Any information on FP Journe splitting the Elegant into its own brand? Yeah, I've got some. They made their first appearance at SIHH this year, not as FP Journe, even though the FP Journe watches were there. They were there as Elegant by FP Journe. Now, previously, the Elegant had accounted in all its forms, the 48, the ladies, all of them, for about 500 pieces. They would like to expand that to 1,000 to 1,500 pieces. That does not count towards the total FP Journe annual production. They have a count that they break out for mechanical and a count that they break out for the Elegant. So it's becoming a very distinct line that's going to be male, female, focusing on what they like to call, their words, not mine, sport chic. And I think that pretty much sums it up. They're going with ceramic case inserts. They're going with titanium cases. They say all of the watches are swimmable with screw-down crowns. So that's the news. They're going to be making more of them. They're going to be advertising them separately, and they're going to be pushing it as a distinct sub-brand, almost, but not quite, like Tudor underneath Rolex.
Yeah, I think the Tudor Rolex thing's a little bit more disconnected.
Yeah, they're definitely.
So it's, you know, not fair to say. I think it's a really smart move for Journe. I think, you know, you allow yourselves to appease more people to buy a watch that a lot of people really want to buy. It allows you a little bit more room for working with new materials. We're always talking about material science, so they can work with new materials, offer a product, fulfill a market, and then expand as a business. A lot of people don't understand that some of these companies, like Journe, is a relatively small company. There's not a lot of people that work for this company. So yes, they sell really expensive watches, but the business side of it, you know, Journe, the production cost versus what they sell the watches at for retail is very competitive compared to what a lot of these big companies, they spend, you know, 20% of retail to make a watch. So I think this allows them to get some much rewarded money for research and development for some of the real serious stuff that's coming out. Okay, so here we go. We've got Captain Zed's FP Journe Elegant 48, and we've got Tyler's Rolex Datejust Chronograph. You asked me which chronograph to buy or which Datejust to buy. Again, I always recommend the last and the 6-digit chronographs. Great watches. You guys have awesome taste. And whoever Captain Zed bought that Elegante from is an awesome guy. I'm just saying.
Yeah, Captain Zed has excellent taste in sales associates.
Yeah, I think I know where he got that from.
All right. Comments flying away fast and furious. I appreciate you guys participating. This is an interactive show. Questions and comments, keep bringing them through in the chat box. Now, we have another question that was asked. Okay, Ray B asks, Guys, this one's a little bit off script, so if you don't have graphics in the control room, don't freak out. I inserted this at the last minute. We're going off script for a moment. Raby asks, what's your opinion of IWC refinishing service for an IWC vintage watch, 1949 caliber 89 manual wind? It's a gold dress watch. It's been in my family since it was new and still runs and keeps time. However, the case needs some attention. It has dents. I'm thinking of sending it to IWC for some laser welding and service. Your thoughts? Okay. Here's the thing, factory restoration must be specified when you send a watch like this into IWC. You need to start a dialogue with factory reps, preferably at an IWC boutique, and make sure they understand that when they contact Schaffhausen, this is a restoration. They have great restoration personnel, and the multiple functional IWC Paul Weber pocket watches at SIHH were a testament to this. I've also seen work done by the restoration department on wristwatches. They do great work, but here's the thing. Understand the process ahead of time. It's going to take a really long time. I don't mean 3, 4, 5, 6 months. I mean, you might lose your watch for 18 months. Restoration moves slow. It's going to cost more. Don't be price sensitive if you want to send it in for factory restoration. And rejections do happen. I have seen gold caliber 89 watches from that period go to IWC and get rejected on the basis that they could not sufficiently ensure the integrity of the watch once serviced. The case was either compromised or the movement wouldn't fit back into the case. There was something about it that spooked them. So rejections do happen. Okay, that said, the restoration service is excellent. No manufacturer, though, will accept a standalone refinishing request. In general, when a manufacturer opens a watch, and they will always open a watch to refinish, they will also do a mechanical service. And here's the thing, that's going to take time and it's going to cost money, so don't expect you can just send it in to have a few dents laser welded. This is all or nothing when restoring an older watch. So be ready to wait, to pay, and accommodate if they can't restore it. There are specialists who can take over after that. If they don't agree to restore, contact me. I'll get you in contact with someone who can help you on a vintage watch and specifically focus on preservation, not restoration. Okay. So Cam is asking, what email should I send the wrist shots? That is mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com. Okay, jumping back into watches. Dun, 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 dun. Stanislaus T asks, why do so many companies offer, this is about watch accuracy and the relationship between beat rate and accuracy. This comes up all the time. He asks, why do so many companies offer movements that beat at less than 28,800 vibrations per hour? Isn't faster better? Zenith was at 36,000 vibrations per hour in 1969. Why isn't that minimally the standard? Okay, here's the thing. Truthfully, Girard-Perregaux beat them to that standard by a couple of years in addition, so it wasn't like Zenith invented 10 beats per second. But beat rate, that is vibration rate, frequency of the balance, is one of only several factors that contribute to accuracy. Now, what else? Well, let's consider that the mass of a hairspring is never centered. So let's review the factors that can affect accuracy and how a watchmaker can design a watch that doesn't beat quickly to be very accurate. Gravity. No hairspring is ever perfectly centered. Ideally, in order to fully grasp the problem, think of the hairspring moving around, gravity, around the balance staff, which is at the center of the balance. Because it's off-centered and the stud attaches the hairspring on one side and the collet attaches the hairspring on another side, one side's always going to be heavier, so it doesn't beat concentrically. Now, a Breguet overcoil hairspring can fix this. It can help to center the mass, not perfectly, but better. So you see how the Breguet overcoil doubles up on itself to promote concentric beating and centered mass. Now, JLC sometimes uses a spherical hairspring that offers even better centering of mass. If you need a visual, you can sort of see it. It looks exactly like an AT&T logo in 3D. Now, the original Breguet tourbillon addressed this problem, which is variation due to gravity, by rotating the entire balance and hairspring 360 degrees with respect to gravity in order to cancel the fast and slow positions of the hairspring and the escapement. Now today, Jaeger LeCoultre's gyro tourbillon, and they're not the only ones who do this, Girard-Perregaux does it, Thomas Prescher does it, many do it, but they've created a gyro tourbillon that attempts to adapt the Breguet tourbillon to a wristwatch configuration. Since pocket watches sit in one position, a circular tourbillon suffices. With a wristwatch, the balance needs to move in many planes, so you need something more like a spherical motion to even the effects of gravity, and that's what this watch does. So that's gravity. By countering gravity with the hairspring or a tourbillon, you can improve accuracy. Let's talk about friction. Okay, now watch springs inside mainspring barrels, drivetrains, your train wheels, and the escapement itself consume considerable energy. Omega's coaxial caliber here, caliber 8901, uses a tri-level tangential motion escapement developed, envisioned originally by George Daniels, the late watchmaster, and perfected over nearly 20 years of practical experience by Omega. Now these routinely, in my experience, run better than half of 1 second gained or lost per day. I've seen them run 1/10, I've seen them run 1/3, and this day after day after day on the wrist. And this in spite of a beat rate of only 25,200 vibrations per hour. It's not even a 4 Hertz beat rate. So this is a rate optimized for this architecture, explaining once again why the speed of the balance and the speed of the escapement alone cannot explain a watch's accuracy. Now, remember our viewer Bob's FP Journe Chronometre Optimum from earlier in the show. That's right. Well, that's a modern direct impulse escapement. That's a modern development of old-style direct impulse escapements experimented with by Breguet and others during the era of marine chronometers. The escape wheels, as you can see, directly impulse the balance wheel's roller jewel. Now, typically, these systems take the Swiss lever escapement, and they eliminate the actual lever. That's right, the wheel just impulses the balance. That's a direct impulse system when you take the lever out. It's tough to make. That's why you don't see many of them. Now, there's another way you can reduce friction, and that's not a direct impulse unlubricated balance like FP Journe uses, but the Breitling Chronoworks shows how you can use synthetics. Think of this and the Panerai Lab ID, the PAM 700. You take synthetics, an unlubricated set of train wheels with unlubricated pivots inserted directly into carbon, or I should say ceramic, carbon black ceramic bridges and plates, operating with low friction with an unlubricated full silicon escapement to reduce friction. This is another way you can reduce friction without increasing the beat rate and making a more accurate watch. That's the Breitling Chronoworks. Often, many small improvements in machining, finishing, coating, roulage of pivots, pivot polishing, polishing of teeth, and hand regulation can create results that these exotic solutions would struggle to match. For instance, think of a blueprinted engine. It's not like there's a supercharger, laughing gas, a turbocharger, or any exotic peripheral. This is simply an engine for which the tolerances of assembly are excruciatingly precise. All of the moving parts have been matched and balanced by hand. The whole thing is optimized detail by excruciating detail, and that's what Rolex with its Chronergy escapement achieves. There's nothing radically different here, but by dramatically reducing friction, Rolex has increased power reserve and increased accuracy. Again, that's a Swiss lever escapement. It's different in detail, but it's not a fundamentally new technology. It reduces friction. Finally, power supply. This is another factor that can achieve accuracy in excess of a high beat rate without a high beat rate. Think about as mainsprings unwind, they release uneven amounts of torque. Lots at the beginning, very little at the end of their wind. So, how can you address this uneven torque over mainspring discharge? Well, multiple mainspring barrels can help you do that. And think Chopard, this is the Quattro. 4 mainspring barrels, each stacked. So you have 4 mainspring barrels stacked together in pairs. Okay, that can help to alleviate the problem of uneven torque. You can have different torque discharge rates from different mainsprings built into the system, so when one is weak, the other is strong. When one is strong, the other is weak, and you get a more even release. Or you can use a chain and a fusee. Now, a chain and a fusee goes back to the pocket watch era, but here you're looking at the Zenith Academy Georges Favre-Jacot. This is a system like a bicycle gear arrangement where it actually goes to a more practical, higher ratio, lower effort as the mainspring discharges, it effectively turns an easier gear as the chain moves across the fusee. So you have the fusee and chain. And finally, you have, again, we're going back to Bob's Chronometre Optimum with a remontoir d'égalité. This is like the chain and fusee, but more efficient with fewer parts. You have one spring between the mainspring and the hairspring, so it feeds out a certain amount of energy, and the remontoir always impulses the escapement with the same amount of energy. That's why for 45 hours the amplitude of this watch stays exactly the same as does the precision. Finally, beat rate, creating a high rate movement. Okay, in the wristwatch era, what we know is that arm motions and shocks that your watch experiences on the wrist have low cyclic frequencies but high amplitude. That is, they're slow movements on the wrist but forceful. Now, here's the thing. Beat rate cannot fix variation due to gravity. It cannot fix deviation due to uneven power supply, uneven torque from the mainspring, and it cannot address friction in the system. What beat rate can address is the frequency of oscillations and destructive interference of the balance amplitude on the wrist. So we've seen 18,000, 19,800, 21,600, 28,800, and 36,000 vibration per hour beat rates in wristwatches. The idea is by increasing the beat rate, you'll be less likely to have the addition of amplitude or reduction of amplitude by a motion made by the wrist. The wrist does not move that quickly. Even when it's forceful, it doesn't have a lot of amplitude. By increasing the rate of the balance, you have less and less likelihood that destructive, that is lost time, or constructive interference, that is gained time, will occur as a result of wrist motions. And that is why beat rate can only address one of many factors that contribute to watch accuracy. And you want to know something else? An old school mid-1900s observatory chronometer adjusted by a master can beat all of the above that we just named. All right, comments and questions coming in. So we got a question from Hachi Zenki. When are we going to see air bearings in watchmaking? I think with magnetic pivots, never, because that's now a thing. Question, Jason keeps on smirking. That's a fact. I don't mean to shut Jason down. Guys, if you've got questions for Jason, forward them up.
I'm just sitting here learning, that's all.
Okay, so lots of questions coming through. Here's a question. If you had to buy right now the Sea Dweller 43 or the old Sea Dweller 40, the Sea Dweller 4000 that was just discontinued, which one do you buy and why for the same money? Let's say you pay $11,000 and change for both.
That's tough. If I could buy, I guess, right now the 4000's up there. I don't know that it's quite at 11.3 yet, but
because Cam just sent in a wrist shot of his own, and I'm going to
so I like the Sea Dweller 4000 better as a watch. I think it checks all the boxes for me. The 43 is interesting, and I'd like to own one, but if for the same money, it's hard to justify not buying the 43. So if both pieces are 11.3, I'd go for the 43. If I could buy either one at retail, I'd buy the 4000.
Okay, and on that note, I'm going to show you Cam's 116600, the Sea Dweller 4000, 2014 to 2017, rest in peace, rise in price. Guys, this is Watchbox, that's Cam's watch. I'm Tim, he's Jason, they're the amigos, and thanks for logging on.